I still remember the coffee mug shattering on the floor when Philip Mercer fired me. 45 million company, he boasted, and you're not leadership material. He actually laughed. 3 years later, I was sitting in his office, the owner's chair. My name is Alexander Reed, and this isn't just a revenge story. It's about what happens when someone underestimates the quiet person in the room. When Philip walked into that interview, he didn't recognize me at first, but the moment he did, I've never seen a man's face drain of color so quickly, and that was just the beginning. My alarm would ring at 5:15 a.m. every weekday, and I'd be at my desk by 6:30. Not because Mercer Industries required it, official hours were 8 to 5, but because those quiet morning hours were when I did my best thinking. Alexander Reed, 34, Director of Product Development at Mercer Industries, Boston's fastest-growing medical equipment manufacturer. I'd been there 7 years. Having worked my way up from entry-level engineer with nothing but my MIT degree and a passion for creating devices that actually helped patients instead of just shareholders. My corner office overlooked the Charles River, and I kept a small telescope by the window to watch rowing teams practice at dawn. On my desk sat a worn leather notebook, a graduation gift from my grandfather, who'd worked 40 years as a hospital janitor to put my father through college. Ideas Save Lives, he'd written inside the cover. That notebook contained every product concept I'd developed for Mercer, including the RapidScan portable imaging system that now accounted for 40% of company revenue. "Morning, boss," said Liam, my assistant, arriving at 7:30 with my usual black coffee. 24, brilliant, and the hardest worker on my team of 12. The Q2 projections are ready for your review, and R&D needs approval on the new catheter design by noon. "Thanks, Liam. How's your mom doing after surgery?" I asked, genuinely concerned. I knew everyone on my team, their families, their struggles, their strengths. I believed leadership wasn't about corner offices or executive decisions. It was about knowing your people. "Much better, Mr. Reed. Thanks for asking, and for the flowers." She was really touched. By 8 o'clock, the office hummed with activity. My team gathered in the glass-walled conference room for our weekly strategy meeting. I'd built this team carefully, diverse backgrounds, complementary skills. Together, we'd created 3 market-leading products in as many years. "Alex," Philip Mercer's booming voice interrupted our meeting as he threw open the door. "Looking good in here. The board meeting's been moved up to 2 p.m. I want you to present the RapidScan 2.0 roadmap." His Rolex flashed as he clapped me on the shoulder. "No problem, Philip. We're actually finalizing the prototype specs now." "Excellent. That's what I like about you, Alex. Always ahead of the curve." He smiled broadly, but I noticed it didn't reach his eyes. At 58, Philip Mercer had built Mercer Industries from a small medical supply company into a respected manufacturer. Silver-haired, perpetually tanned, he projected success from every pore. What he lacked in technical knowledge, he made up for in charisma and business instinct. I nodded, turning back to my team as Philip left. "All right, where were we?" That afternoon, I noticed Melissa Bryant, our new VP of Operations, in deep conversation with Philip in his office. Hired just 6 months ago, Melissa had quickly become Philip's right hand. Tall, impeccably dressed, with Harvard MBA credentials prominently displayed in her office, she projected efficiency and ambition. She'd been increasingly involved in product development meetings, asking pointed questions about the RapidScan technology. Professional curiosity, I'd assumed. "She's asking for all the RapidScan 2.0 documentation," Liam mentioned casually as we prepared for the board meeting. Said Philip wanted a comprehensive review. "That's strange. He didn't mention that to me." A small ping of concern, quickly dismissed. Probably just due diligence. The board meeting went exceptionally well. My presentation on RapidScan 2.0 generated genuine excitement, projected revenue of $28 million in the first year alone. Afterward, Philip pulled me aside. "Drinks tonight at Morton's? There's something important I want to discuss." He squeezed my shoulder, his gold signet ring pressing into my skin. "Sure thing. 8 p.m. work?" "Perfect. This is big, Alex, really big. That evening, Morton's private dining room held only Philip and a bottle of $300 Macallan. He poured generously as I settled into the leather chair across from him. 7 years you've been with us, Alex. You've created our best-selling products. The board sees it, I see it. He swirled his whiskey. I'm thinking about the future of Mercer Industries. My heart quickened. Was this it? The COO position had been vacant for months. My teams consistently outperformed every metric. We're expanding internationally next quarter, opening offices in London, Singapore, Frankfurt. That's fantastic, I said, genuinely excited. The European market for RapidScan could be twice what we're seeing domestically. Exactly. He leaned forward. Alex, I need someone who can take charge of our global product strategy, someone who understands our technology inside and out. I've been developing plans for international expansion since last year. I've got preliminary market analyses. No need for all that tonight. Philip is about the big picture. Tell me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Leading product innovation for Mercer, hopefully as COO or... I hesitated, then decided to be honest. Eventually, CEO. I believe in what we're building here, Philip. Life-saving technology that's accessible to more hospitals. Ambitious. I like that. He smiled, but again, it didn't reach his eyes. Let me ask you something else. How well do you know Melissa Bryant? The question caught me off guard. Professionally, of course, she's been very involved in my department lately. Melissa has an exceptional mind for business, very strategic thinker. He refilled our glasses. She's been reviewing all our departments, looking for synergies. Something in his tone made me uneasy. Synergies? The board is concerned about redundancies as we scale. Melissa's identified several areas where we could streamline operations. We talked for another hour about the company's future, but that uneasy feeling lingered. Walking to my car afterward, I called my wife, Rachel. How did it go? She asked immediately. I'm not sure, I said honestly. Something felt off. Philip was talking about the future, but he kept bringing up Melissa Bryant. The new VP? The one with the designer suits and no smile? I laughed. Rachel had met Melissa at the company Christmas party and had taken an instant dislike to her. That's the one. Trust your instincts, Alex. You always know when something's not right. But I dismissed my concerns. The next morning, an email from Philip requested all RapidScan documentation and patent applications be shared with Melissa for strategic review. Strange, but not alarming enough. 2 weeks later, I was called to HR at 4:45 p.m. on a Friday. I knew something was wrong the moment I saw Philip standing beside Melissa and the HR director, Linda. The conference room felt suddenly too small, too warm. Alex, please, sit down. Philip gestured to a chair, his face a practiced mask of regret. This isn't easy, but we're restructuring the product development division. My mouth went dry. Restructuring? We're consolidating leadership under Melissa, who'll oversee both operations and product development as our new Chief Innovation Officer. The coffee mug I'd been holding slipped from my fingers, shattering on the polished floor. No one moved to clean it up. My position is being eliminated? I asked, my voice distant to my own ears. Melissa stepped forward, all business. We've reviewed your department extensively, Alexander. The board feels we need more aggressive leadership to take Mercer global, someone with fresh perspectives. I've generated over $100 million in revenue with my perspectives, I said, struggling to maintain composure. Philip wouldn't meet my eyes. It's not about your technical skills, Alex. You're brilliant there. It's about leadership material. Global expansion requires a certain ruthlessness that, frankly, isn't your strong suit. You're too nice. Too nice, I repeated, the words feeling like a physical blow. 7 years, countless nights and weekends, my ideas, My innovations. You'll receive 6-month severance, Linda interjected, sliding a folder across the table. And, of course, a recommendation letter. As security escorted me to clear out my desk, I saw Liam's shocked face. Through the glass walls of what had been my office, I watched Melissa already measuring for new furniture. My leather notebook sat open on her desk. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Reed," Liam whispered, helping me pack my personal items while security hovered. "It's not your fault," I said, though my voice sounded hollow even to myself. I slipped my grandfather's pocket watch, the only thing of value he'd owned, into my jacket. "Take care of the team, Liam." Walking out of Mercer Industries that evening, cardboard box in arms, I heard Philip's voice behind me in the parking garage. "Alex, wait!" He jogged over, looking uncomfortable. "This is business, not personal. You understand that, right?" I looked at him for a long moment. "Would you have done this to a friend, Philip?" He had the decency to look away. Melissa found redundancies. The board voted unanimously. "Redundancies?" I repeated. "Is that what 7 years of loyalty is?" He sighed, then said the words I would replay for months. "This is a $45 million company, Alex. We need sharks, not nice guys. You're just not leadership material. I'm sure you'll find something suitable." He actually chuckled then. Maybe a teaching position. As he walked away, I noticed he was already wearing a new watch, a Patek Philippe that probably cost more than my annual bonus, the same model I'd once mentioned admiring, the final indignity. The first month after being fired was a blur of disbelief and frantic job searching. "It's just a setback," Rachel assured me, though I could see the worry behind her smile. "Our savings were healthy, but Boston's cost of living meant they wouldn't last forever. Our mortgage alone was $3,800 monthly for a modest 3-bedroom in Brooklyn." By month 2, the reality set in. My industry was small, and word traveled fast. Job interviews would go well until they'd ask why I'd left Mercer. Structural reorganization sounded like a euphemism, and in many ways it was. What I couldn't tell them was that my replacement was now selling my innovations as her own. Month 3 brought the first real blow. A former colleague called to tell me that Melissa had presented RapidScan 2.0 at a medical conference, with her name on the patent application. The technology I'd spent 2 years developing was now officially hers. I consulted an attorney who shook his head grimly after reviewing my employment contract. "They've covered themselves well," he said. "All intellectual property developed during your employment belongs to Mercer Industries, not to you personally. But they're claiming she developed it. It's unethical, but not necessarily illegal if the company owns the IP." He quoted me a $25,000 retainer to pursue the case. Money I didn't have. By month 4, I'd sold my Audi, $38,000, Rachel's jewelry collection, $12,400, and most of our furniture, $7,300. Job rejections piled up. Philip had been busy. Whenever I'd get close to an offer, companies would suddenly go cold. Someone was poisoning the well. "We need to consider moving," Rachel said one night, after I'd been rejected by a startup in Burlington. "My sister said we could stay with her in Phoenix until we get back on our feet." The thought of leaving Boston, of admitting defeat, was almost unbearable. "Just give me 1 more month," I pleaded. Month 5, Rachel's parents loaned us $10,000 to keep afloat. I swallowed my pride and took a night shift position stocking shelves at a medical supply warehouse. The irony wasn't lost on me. Handling boxed versions of devices I'd helped design, now stamped with Melissa Bryant's name as inventor. Then came the crushing blow. The bank called about our mortgage payments, which were now 2 months behind. "We can work out a payment plan, Mr. Reed, but we'll need a substantial good faith payment immediately." That same day, I saw the announcement in the Boston Business Journal. Mercer Industries acquired by HealthTech Global for $73 million. The article featured a smiling Philip Mercer shaking hands with HealthTech CEO. The rapid scan technology, developed by CIO Melissa Bryant, was the cornerstone of the acquisition, the article stated. Philip had cashed out, and Melissa had gotten a global executive position. They'd stolen my life's work and made millions. That night, I told Rachel we had to sell the house. "It's just a house," she said, wiping away tears. "We'll start over." We listed our home for a quick sale at $120,000 below market value and moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Dorchester that cost $1,600 a month, all we could afford on my warehouse salary and Rachel's teaching assistant position. 6 months after being fired, I hit rock bottom. Walking through downtown after a failed job interview, I passed Mercer's former headquarters, now sporting the HealthTech logo. Through the lobby windows, I saw Philip in an expensive new suit, laughing with executives. Our eyes met briefly. He paused, recognition dawning, then deliberately turned away. Something broke inside me that moment. I walked for hours, eventually finding myself at the Charles River, staring into the dark water. My grandfather's pocket watch felt heavy in my hand, the last valuable thing I owned. "Nice watch," said a gruff voice behind me. An elderly man sat on a nearby bench, feeding pigeons. His weathered face and worn clothes suggested he'd seen his share of hard times. "It was my grandfather's," I replied, surprised to find myself talking to a stranger. "You look like a man thinking about doing something stupid," he observed, tossing more breadcrumbs. I laughed bitterly. "Just thinking about how quickly it all falls apart. One day you're successful, the next you're nothing." "Bullshit," he said flatly. "You ain't nothing unless you decide you are." He introduced himself as George, a former business owner who'd lost everything in the 2008 crash and spent 3 years homeless before rebuilding. "The mistake people make," George said, "is thinking the story's over when they're at the bottom. It's not over, it's just a bad chapter." I spent 2 hours on that bench with George, telling him everything. Unlike the sympathetic but increasingly distant friends who drifted away during my downfall, he listened without judgment. "You know what your problem is?" George finally said. "You're fighting to get back what you lost, instead of building something new. They stole your past. Don't let them steal your future, too." Walking home that evening, I passed a small electronics repair shop with a "going out of business" sign. On impulse, I went inside. The elderly owner, Mr. Chen, explained that after 40 years, he was retiring with no successor. For $15,000, someone could buy the business, including all equipment and the lease. I didn't have $15,000, but I had an idea. That night, I finally opened the folder HR had given me during my termination. Inside, beside the insulting severance agreement, was a document I'd never bothered to read, the terms of my stock options. As a director, I'd been granted options representing 2% of Mercer Industries. According to the fine print, those options had vested fully upon the company's acquisition. I called the number on the document with shaking hands. "HealthTech Shareholder Services," a voice answered. "My name is Alexander Reed. I need to check the status of my stock options from Mercer Industries." After verification and a brief hold, "Mr. Reed, your options were converted to HealthTech shares at acquisition. Current value, approximately $1.46 million. Would you like to exercise them?" Rachel found me sitting in stunned silence when she came home from work. "Alex, what's wrong?" I looked up at her, tears streaming down my face. "We're not broke anymore." When I told her everything, she collapsed beside me, both of us crying and laughing at the sudden reversal of fortune. Philip had been so focused on pushing me out that he'd forgotten about my options. His oversight had just made me a millionaire. "What are we going to do?" Rachel asked, still in disbelief. I thought of George by the river, of Mr. Chen's repair shop, of Philip's sneering, "You're not leadership material." A plan was already forming. "We're going to build something," I said, my voice finding strength I hadn't felt in months. Something that will make Philip Mercer wish he'd never heard my name. If this story is touching your heart, leave your like and subscribe to the channel. In the comments, tell me, have you ever experienced betrayal or injustice? Let's create a supportive community. 1 week after discovering my unexpected windfall, I sat in the office of Eleanor Winters, one of Boston's top business attorneys. A formidable woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and piercing eyes, she'd built her reputation representing startups against corporate giants. "So let me understand this correctly," Eleanor said, reviewing my documents. "You developed proprietary medical imaging technology, were terminated without cause, and your former employer is now marketing this technology under someone else's name?" "Exactly, but according to my employment contract—" "Yes, they own the IP," she finished, frowning at the papers. "Frankly, Mr. Reed, this kind of corporate theft happens more often than you'd think, but there's something interesting here." She held up a page, tapping a paragraph with her pen. "Your non-compete clause is surprisingly narrow. It only restricts you from developing substantially similar technology to what you created at Mercer." "Meaning?" "Meaning you can't build another portable imaging system. But there's nothing preventing you from developing complementary or next-generation medical devices." She leaned forward. "What do you know about HealthTech's current product roadmap?" "Everything," I replied, "including what they're not developing but should be." Eleanor smiled for the first time. "Then that's where we start." Over the next month, I invested $25,000 in market research, identifying a critical gap in HealthTech's portfolio. While they focused on diagnostic imaging, they had nothing addressing therapeutic applications, specifically precision-targeted drug delivery systems for cancer treatment. I bought Mr. Chen's repair shop for $15,000 and converted it into a small R&D lab. With my background in medical engineering and contacts from MIT, I assembled a team of 3 brilliant but overlooked engineers. One was a former colleague from Mercer who'd been laid off in Melissa's restructuring. Another was a cancer survivor who understood the patient experience firsthand. 6 months of 18-hour days later, we had a working prototype of the NanoGuide, a device that could deliver treatment directly to tumor sites with minimal impact on surrounding tissue. Initial tests showed efficacy rates 60% higher than conventional methods. What we didn't have was manufacturing capability or FDA approval, both requiring millions more than my remaining funds. We needed investors. "There's someone you should meet," Eleanor said one afternoon. "Lawrence Blackwood of Helix Ventures. He specializes in medical startups and has a particular distaste for corporate predators." Lawrence Blackwood was not what I expected. Instead of the typical venture capitalist in an expensive suit, he arrived in jeans and a worn leather jacket. At 72, with a full white beard and weathered hands, he looked more like a retired mechanic than a financer. "So you're the guy who got screwed by Philip Mercer," he said without preamble, examining our prototype. "Join the club. He pushed me out of my first company in the 90s. Never forgot it." For 2 hours, Lawrence grilled me on every aspect of the NanoGuide technology. His questions were incisive, revealing a deep understanding of both the science and the market. "What's your end game here, Alex?" he finally asked. "Sell to the highest bidder once you get FDA approval?" I hesitated, then decided on complete honesty. Initially, I just wanted to prove Philip wrong, show him I am leadership material. But now, I want to build something that actually helps cancer patients. And yes, I want HealthTech to regret what they did. Lawrence nodded slowly. Honesty, refreshing. He closed his notebook. "Here's my offer. $10 million for 30% of your company, with additional funding tranches tied to development milestones, plus my network for clinical trials and regulatory navigation." My heart raced. "That's generous." "It's not generosity, it's business." Lawrence fixed me with a penetrating stare. But there is one condition. I want first right of refusal if HealthTech ever comes knocking with a buyout offer. Why would that matter? Lawrence smiled grimly. Because I've been waiting 20 years to see Philip Mercer's face when someone says no to him. With Lawrence's backing, Reed Medical Technologies expanded rapidly. We moved to a proper facility, hired 20 employees, and accelerated our FDA approval process. Lawrence's connections proved invaluable, opening doors throughout the medical community. 18 months after our initial investment, the NanoGuide completed successful clinical trials with a 78% efficacy rate in treating previously resistant tumors. Medical journals published our results. Oncologists clamored for access. Then came the call I'd been both expecting and dreading. "Mr. Reed?" An unfamiliar voice on my office phone. "This is Curtis Wong, Chief Acquisition Officer at HealthTech Global. Our CEO would like to meet with you regarding a potential strategic partnership." 2 days later, I walked into HealthTech's gleaming headquarters, the same building where I'd once been escorted out by security. The receptionist's eyes widened slightly in recognition before she composed herself. "Mr. Reed for Mr. Harrington," I said calmly, though my heart hammered in my chest. I was escorted to a vast conference room overlooking the Charles River. Inside waited Daniel Harrington, HealthTech CEO, flanked by lawyers and executives. Among them sat Melissa Bryant, now noticeably pregnant and wearing a significantly larger diamond ring than I remembered. "Alex Reed," Harrington said, extending his hand, "your NanoGuide technology is impressive. We've been following your progress with great interest." "I'm sure you have," I replied, my voice steady. "Let's cut to the chase. We'd like to acquire Reed Medical Technologies. Our opening offer is $65 million, all cash." I noticed Melissa shift uncomfortably in her seat. She hadn't expected that figure. "That's a generous offer," I said, echoing my response to Lawrence 18 months earlier. "We think it's fair," Harrington continued. "You'd join our executive team as head of therapeutic technologies, reporting directly to our CIO. He nodded toward Melissa, whose smile didn't reach her eyes. "I see. And what happens to my team?" "We'd evaluate redundancies, of course, but most would likely find positions within our structure." "Redundancies," I repeated, the familiar word igniting a cold anger in my chest. Just like when Mercer Industries eliminated my redundant position 3 years ago? An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Harrington glanced at Melissa, who was now studying her tablet intently. "That was a different situation," Harrington offered. "Was it?" I opened my briefcase and removed a folder. "Before I respond to your offer, I think you should see these." Inside were documents Lawrence's investigators had uncovered, emails between Philip and Melissa discussing how to force me out and claim credit for my work, evidence of patent fraud, testimony from former employees about the systematic theft of my innovations. "None of this is legally actionable given my employment contract," I explained as Harrington flipped through the pages with growing alarm. "But imagine how your shareholders would react if these documents were made public. Imagine what your stock price would do." Melissa finally spoke, her voice tight. "What do you want, Alex? Money? Recognition? Your name on the patents?" I looked at her, then at each face around the table. "I want to make a counteroffer. Reed Medical is acquiring HealthTech's diagnostic imaging division, the former Mercer Industries, for $35 million. Your board will receive this formal offer tomorrow morning." Stunned silence. "That's absurd," Melissa sputtered. "You can't possibly have that kind of capital." "Actually, we do." I allowed myself a small smile. "Lawrence Blackwood and Helix Ventures are quite familiar with your company's vulnerabilities. Your stock is down 23% since last quarter. Your RapidScan 3.0 release has been delayed twice. 3 of your board members are already supportive of our offer." Harrington's face paled. This is unprecedented. So was stealing someone's life's work and then offering them a job reporting to the thief. I stood, gathering my documents. The offer expires in 48 hours. I suggest you consider it seriously. As I turned to leave, Melissa called out, "This is personal, isn't it? This is about Philip firing you." I paused at the door. "No, Melissa. This is business. As your mentor liked to say, sometimes you need sharks, not nice guys." I smiled. It turns out I'm leadership material after all. If this story surprised you, wait until you hear what happens next. Share this video with someone who needs to believe life can turn around. The boardroom of Helix Ventures hummed with nervous energy as I reviewed the final acquisition documents with Lawrence and our legal team. In the 48 hours since delivering our offer to HealthTech, their stock had dropped 7% on rumors of management turmoil. 3 different financial news outlets had called asking for comment on the unprecedented reverse acquisition. "They've accepted," Eleanor announced, entering with her phone in hand. HealthTech's board voted 7-2 in favor of selling the diagnostic imaging division. Lawrence's weathered face broke into a rare smile. "Told you they would. Companies like HealthTech are bullies. They only understand strength." "There's more," Eleanor continued. "Daniel Harrington is stepping down as CEO, effective immediately." The board cited strategic disagreements as the reason. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt strangely hollow. What about Melissa Bryant? Staying on as CIO of their remaining divisions, for now at least. Eleanor placed a thick folder on the table. These are the final terms. The purchase price remains $35 million. You'll take ownership of the entire former Mercer Industries portfolio, including all intellectual property, manufacturing facilities, and staff. As I signed the papers, Lawrence studied my face. "You don't look like a man who just won, Alex." "It's not about winning," I replied, surprising myself with the truth of it. "It's about setting things right." Over the next week, I immersed myself in planning the integration of HealthTech's diagnostic division into Reed Medical Technologies. Our combined company would now employ over 200 people, with annual revenue projecting at $68 million. When I walked into the former Mercer building as its new owner, the emotions were overwhelming. The security guard who had escorted me out 3 years earlier now nodded respectfully. "Welcome back, Mr. Reed." My first action was to call an all-staff meeting in the main auditorium. Nervous employees filled the seats, whispering among themselves about what the acquisition meant for their jobs. "My name is Alexander Reed," I began, looking out at the sea of faces, some familiar, many new. 3 years ago, I was the director of product development here when this was Mercer Industries. Some of you might remember my rather abrupt departure. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. "I'm not here to clean house or enact revenge," I continued, sensing their anxiety. "I'm here because the technology being developed in this building saves lives, and that mission matters more than any personal history." I outlined our integration plan, emphasizing that there would be no mass layoffs. "We're combining strengths, not eliminating redundancies," I said, unable to resist the dig at corporate jargon. "Every employee will be evaluated on their merits and contributions, not on who they knew or reported to previously." After the meeting, Liam, my former assistant, now a product manager, approached with a wide smile. "Mr. Reed, Alex, it's really good to see you." "You too, Liam. How's your mother?" His eyes widened in surprise that I remembered. "Fully recovered, cancer-free 2 years now." "I'm glad to hear it." I hesitated, then asked, "How bad did it get after I left?" Liam's smile faded. "Pretty bad. Melissa took credit for everything your team developed. People who questioned it were pushed out. Morale tanked." He lowered his voice. "Most of us knew what really happened, but nobody could say anything." Over the following weeks, I interviewed every department head and key contributor personally. Most were relieved to find I wasn't the corporate raider they'd feared. A few Melissa loyalists resigned immediately. I wished them well. Then came the email I'd been expecting. Philip Mercer requested a meeting. Since selling Mercer Industries to HealthTech, Philip had been enjoying semi-retirement as a strategic consultant with a generous compensation package. Our acquisition had thrown his comfortable arrangement into jeopardy. I scheduled the meeting for 4:45 p.m. on a Friday, the exact time I'd been called to HR 3 years earlier. Philip arrived precisely on time, his once commanding presence diminished by obvious anxiety. I kept him waiting in reception for 15 minutes, petty perhaps, but deeply satisfying. When he was finally shown into my office, his former office, I didn't stand to greet him. "Philip, have a seat." He settled uncomfortably into the chair across from me. "Alex, congratulations on your acquisition. Very impressive." "Thank you." I kept my expression neutral. "I understand your consulting agreement with HealthTech included oversight of this division." "Yes. Well, I brought unique historical knowledge. For $750,000 annually, according to the contract." He shifted uncomfortably. "The arrangement was mutually beneficial." "I'm sure it was." I leaned back in my chair. "Unfortunately, that agreement was with HealthTech, not with Reed Medical. As of today, your consulting contract is terminated." The color drained from his face. "You can't do that. I have an agreement." "With a company that no longer controls this division." I slid a document across the desk. "You'll find the termination details here. We've calculated the prorated amount due through today." Philip stared at the paper, then at me. "This is about what happened 3 years ago, isn't it? That was business, Alex, not personal." "And so is this." His composure cracked. "For God's sake, I'm 61. What am I supposed to do now?" I studied him for a moment. The man who had once seemed so powerful now looked old and afraid. Revenge had seemed so important for so long. But now, face to face with his fear, I felt no satisfaction, only a desire to be better than he had been. "Actually, there is something I want to discuss with you," I said, softening my tone slightly. "Reed Medical needs experienced advisors for our international expansion, someone who understands the industry landscape." Hope flickered across his face. "I have extensive contacts in European markets." "Yes, I know." I slid another document across the desk. "This is a new consulting agreement. The scope is limited to international market development. Compensation is $120,000 annually." Philip stared at the figure, a fraction of his previous arrangement. "This is quite a reduction." "It's fair market value for the expertise provided. No more, no less." I met his eyes directly. "You'll report to our VP of Global Strategy. The position requires regular office hours and measurable contributions." "You want me to come work for you?" he said slowly, realization dawning. "To prove myself to you." "I want qualified people who can help this company succeed," I corrected him. "Whether you're one of those people is entirely up to you. The role exists with or without you." For a long moment, Philip sat in silence, his pride visibly warring with his financial reality. Finally, he picked up the agreement. "I need time to review this with my attorney." "Of course, you have until Monday." I stood, signaling the end of our meeting. "One more thing, Philip. If you do accept this position, you should know that we operate differently here. We value collaboration over competition, innovation over ego, and we never, ever claim credit for another person's work." As security escorted him out, standard procedure for all non-employees, I watched from my office window. The same parking spot where he'd told me I wasn't leadership material now held my Tesla. Rachel was waiting when I got home that evening, a bottle of champagne chilling. "How did it go with Mercer?" "Did you fire him dramatically? Tell him to clean out his desk in 5 minutes?" I sank onto the couch beside her. I offered him a job. You what? She stared at me in disbelief. A legitimate position, at a fair salary, no special treatment. I took her hand. Destroying him wouldn't undo what happened, but making him earn his place, contribute actual value, that's justice with purpose. You're a better person than I am, she said, shaking her head. I would have thrown him out on his ear. 3 years ago, I might have too, I smiled. But we're building something important now, something bigger than revenge. On Monday morning, Philip Mercer's signed contract was on my desk. By Wednesday, he was in orientation with other new hires, learning our company values and procedures. The former king of Mercer Industries now sat in a standard cubicle, taking notes like any other employee. The real transformation, however, was happening in the R&D department. With the rapid scan technology back under my control, I immediately restored proper attribution to the original development team. Furthermore, I established the Reed Innovation Fellowship, a program that gave engineers protected time to pursue their own medical device concepts, with full credit and profit sharing guaranteed. 6 months after the acquisition, our first integrated product launched, a combination of rapid scan imaging and nanoguide therapy technology that allowed real-time visualization during cancer treatment. Clinical results exceeded all expectations. In the company cafeteria one afternoon, I spotted Philip sitting alone, reviewing market reports. I grabbed my coffee and made a decision. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, sliding into the chair across from him. He looked up, surprised. "Of course not." "How are you finding the European distributor analysis?" "Challenging," he admitted. "The regulatory landscape has changed significantly since I was last involved." "That's why we need your experience," I said, genuinely. "No one else here has navigated European medical device regulation during its previous iteration. That context is valuable." For the first time since his return, Philip smiled without pretense. "I've identified 3 potential distribution partners that weren't on your radar. I've outlined the pros and cons in my report." "Good work." I stood to leave. "Send it to the strategy team. If it's as thorough as you suggest, we'll pursue all 3. "Alex," he called as I turned away, "I'm sorry for what happened before. It was wrong." I nodded once, accepting but not dwelling on his apology. "Weekly strategy meeting is tomorrow at 10. Bring your distribution analysis." That evening, I called Lawrence to update him on our progress. "The quarterly numbers look excellent," he said. "The board is impressed with the integration. You've retained 93% of key personnel, and the new product pipeline is stronger than projected." "What about Melissa Bryant?" I asked. "Any word from your sources at HealthTech?" Lawrence chuckled. "Apparently, she's been job hunting since the acquisition. No takers yet. Turns out claiming credit for someone else's innovations catches up with you eventually." After the call, I sat in my home office, looking at the framed photo on my desk. Our entire company at the annual picnic, over 200 smiling faces. In the back row stood Philip Mercer, not quite smiling, but present, contributing. George, my Riverside philosopher, had been right. The story hadn't ended at rock bottom. It had only begun. The next morning, I walked through our R&D lab, watching teams collaborate on technologies that would help patients worldwide. Liam, now leading his own project team, waved me over to demonstrate their latest prototype. "We've increased efficiency by 23% over the previous design," he explained proudly. "The team has been working weekends to perfect it." "Outstanding work," I said, genuinely impressed. But no more weekends for a while. Innovation requires rest, too. As I continued my rounds, I passed Philip's cubicle. He was mentoring a young sales coordinator on European market entry strategies, patiently explaining cultural differences in medical purchasing decisions. The leadership qualities he'd once claimed I lacked, he was now demonstrating himself, not through dominance, but through service. "Mr. Reed," called our head of HR, hurrying to catch me, The leadership development program you requested is ready for review. 20 high-potential employees, including 5 from production who've never had advancement opportunities before. Excellent. Let's launch it next month. I smiled at the irony. The man once deemed to lack leadership material was now creating leadership opportunities for others. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Don't forget dinner with George tonight, 7 p.m." George had become a regular guest at our home. His street wisdom a constant reminder of what truly matters. We'd helped him secure stable housing and a part-time job at a community center, where he mentored young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. Melissa Bryant stood awkwardly in my office doorway, her pregnancy now in its final stages. "Alex, thank you for seeing me without an appointment." "What can I do for you, Melissa?" She took a deep breath. "My position at Health Tech is being eliminated in the restructuring. I'm exploring options." I leaned back in my chair, studying her carefully. "Are you asking me for a job?" "I'm asking for a conversation," she replied, her usual confidence notably absent. "My circumstances have changed. I need stability." "Circumstances often change," I acknowledged, thinking of my own journey. "But people rarely do unless they choose to." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Melissa did something I'd never witnessed. She dropped the corporate mask. "I made terrible choices," she said quietly. "I saw an opportunity and took it, regardless of who got hurt. I told myself that's how business works. Now I'm about to be a single mother, and I'm reevaluating everything." I considered her words carefully. Reed Medical doesn't have a position for the Melissa Bryant I knew at Mercer. But if you're truly different now, submit your resume through proper channels. Be transparent about your past actions in the interview. If you're the best qualified candidate, you'll be considered fairly. She nodded, understanding both the opportunity and the boundary. "Thank you for not shutting the door completely." As she turned to leave, I added, "And Melissa, congratulations on the baby. Some things matter far more than corporate success." 2 years after acquiring the former Mercer Industries, I stood on the roof deck of Reed Medical Technologies' expanded headquarters, watching the sunrise over the Charles River. At 39, I led a company valued at $180 million, employing over 300 people across 3 continents. Our medical devices now help treat patients in 47 countries, and our cancer therapy systems had improved survival rates by an average of 42% in previously untreatable cases. The numbers were impressive, but they weren't what brought me to the roof every morning. I came for perspective, to remind myself how quickly fortunes can change in both directions. Life had evolved remarkably for everyone involved in my journey. Philip Mercer had surprised us all by thriving in his focused role. Freed from the pressures of running an entire company, he'd become an invaluable resource for international expansion. While never part of the executive team again, he'd found purpose in mentoring younger employees, and had recently been recognized with our Knowledge Sharing Excellence Award. Melissa Bryant had indeed applied through proper channels 6 months after our conversation. After a rigorous interview process that included a frank acknowledgement of her past actions, she'd been hired to lead a specialized analytics team. Her performance was strictly professional now. No politics, no credit stealing. The birth of her daughter seemed to have genuinely transformed her priorities. We maintained a cordial, arm's-length professional relationship. Liam had flourished as innovation team leader, recently securing his first patent under our shared credit system. His mother's successful cancer treatment had inspired him to focus specifically on oncology devices, bringing valuable patient-centered insights to our design process. Rachel had used her portion of our success to establish a nonprofit supporting women returning to the workforce after career interruptions. Second Chapter Careers had already helped 127 women rebuild their professional lives after extended absences. George, my riverside philosopher, now served on our community advisory board, ensuring Reed Medical never lost sight of the human impact of our work. His perspective as someone who had experienced both success and absolute rock bottom kept us grounded. Lawrence Blackwood remained our largest investor and most vocal champion. At 74, he often joked that watching Reed Medical grow was the most fun he'd had in his entire career. "Most revenge fantasies don't save lives," he'd said at our last board meeting. "Yours is the exception." As for me, the journey had changed me in ways I'd never anticipated. The bitter drive for vindication that once consumed me had transformed into something healthier, a determination to create an organization that valued innovation, integrity, and human dignity equally. "I thought I'd find you up here," Rachel said, joining me at the railing. "The R&D team is already buzzing about the clinical trial results. They're saying it's breakthrough territory." I smiled, taking her hand. "Remember when we could barely make rent? When I was stocking shelves overnight and you were tutoring on weekends?" "I remember thinking we'd never get through it," she admitted. "But we did. And strangely, I think we needed that time." She was right. The fall had been devastating, but it had stripped away everything superficial, forcing me to rebuild on a stronger foundation. The hunger and humiliation had taught me empathy that no success ever could. Later that morning, I walked through our production facility, where our devices were assembled with meticulous care. A team lead named Carlos waved me over to inspect a new quality control process they developed. "This reduces testing time by 36%, Mr. Reed, without any reduction in accuracy. The whole team contributed ideas." "That's outstanding innovation, Carlos. Submit it through the improvement program so everyone gets proper credit and compensation." Our company culture had become our greatest competitive advantage. While other medical device manufacturers struggled with retention, we had a waiting list of talented engineers and scientists eager to join. The reason was simple. At Reed Medical, people knew they would be valued, their contributions recognized, and their well-being prioritized. That afternoon, I visited our on-site clinic, where patients who couldn't afford treatment elsewhere received our advanced therapies at no cost. We'd treated 83 patients in the past year, with a 72% positive response rate. Each success story was displayed on the clinic walls, tangible reminders of why our work mattered. Dr. Kessler, our chief medical officer, walked with me through the treatment rooms. "The new combined imaging delivery system is performing even better than expected," she reported. "We're seeing tumor reduction in cases that were previously considered untreatable." "That's what matters most," I replied. "Watching a patient receive treatment while his family waited nearby. Not the revenue, not the stock price, this." That evening, we hosted a 5th anniversary celebration for Reed Medical's founding. The company atrium was filled with employees, investors, patients, and partners. As I took the stage to deliver brief remarks, I spotted familiar faces throughout the crowd. George sitting proudly in the front row, Lawrence recording the speech on his phone for posterity, Philip standing quietly near the back, a changed man from the arrogant executive who'd once fired me. 5 years ago, Reed Medical began with a simple question, I started. What if medical technology was developed not just for profit, but for maximum patient benefit? What if we created a company where innovation was collaborative rather than competitive? Where every contributor received proper credit and compensation? Where ethics and excellence were equally valued? I paused, looking across the gathered faces. The conventional wisdom said such a company couldn't succeed in today's cutthroat business environment. The conventional wisdom was wrong. Reed Medical hasn't succeeded despite our values. We've succeeded because of them. The applause was warm and genuine. Many of you know parts of my story, how I lost everything, hit rock bottom, and found a path forward. What you might not know is the most important lesson I learned during that time. Success and failure are both temporary. Character is permanent. I raised my glass. To everyone who contributed to building this company, Our engineers, our production teams, our administrative staff, our medical advisors, our investors who believed in our vision, and especially the patients who trust us with their care. This success belongs to all of you. Later that night, as the celebration wound down, I found myself back on the roof deck, joined unexpectedly by Philip Mercer. "Remarkable speech," he said, looking out at the river rather than at me. "Remarkable company. Thank you. Your European distribution framework has been a significant part of our growth." He nodded, silent for a moment. "I've been offered a CEO position at a startup in California," he finally said. "They want my experience scaling medical device companies." "Congratulations. When do you leave?" I turned it down. He turned to face me directly. "What we're building here matters more. If it's all right with you, I'd like to stay and continue what I've started." I studied him carefully, seeing sincerity in place of the calculated ambition that once defined him. What happened to the man who told me nice guys can't lead? "He was proven wrong in the most emphatic way possible," Philip replied with a wry smile, "by a leader who succeeded by being both nice and formidable." As we shook hands, I thought about the long, unlikely journey that had brought us to this moment. The betrayal that had seemed like an ending had actually been the beginning of something far more important than personal vindication. It had launched a company that was changing medicine, changing lives, and even changing the people who'd once caused such pain. That night, looking through old photos, I found the image I was searching for. Me standing outside Mercer Industries with a cardboard box in my arms the day I was fired. I placed it in a frame beside a recent company photo of our 300-plus employees gathered on the same steps, now under the Reed Medical logo. The contrast couldn't have been more stark, yet the connection between those moments was unbreakable. The fall had been necessary for the rise. The betrayal had enabled something better to emerge. I thought of George's words by the river that desperate day. "It's not over. It's just a bad chapter." He had been more right than he knew. The story hadn't ended with failure. It had merely taken an unexpected turn toward a far better ending than I could have imagined. My grandfather's pocket watch sat on my desk, still keeping perfect time after decades. I opened it, reading the inscription he'd added when I graduated. "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's courage that counts." If this story touched your soul, if you believe justice exists and that we can rise from the ashes, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. In the comments, share your own story of overcoming adversity. Let's support each other. Share this video with someone going through a difficult time. Remember, your story isn't over yet, and the best chapters may be yet to come. 2 incredible stories are appearing on the screen now. Choose one to continue this journey of hope. Until the next video, may you find your own victorious turning point. God bless you.